This tutorial is going to break out the technical services area within the Koha staff interface. So we're going to focus on cataloging, serials, and acquisitions during this tutorial video. Let's head on over to the cataloging module just to kind of see the options that you have within the cataloging module. You can go ahead and create a brand new record. You can bring records in from a Z39.50 target. And then finally, you have the ability to pull in vendor files. So we're going to walk through a couple of those stages. And then we'll talk about the other tools, actions that you can do within the cataloging module. Koha has what's known as frameworks. So frameworks are going to build that kind of template that librarians know and love so well into determining what mark fields and subfields are going to show up in my cataloging editor, as well as making things important and required. If I click that new from Z39.50, I have the ability to see the targets that I have listed on the right-hand side. I can pick and choose. By default, I can decide what are pre-selected during this process. And then I'm able to pull in a book. Using title, author, ISBN, ISSN, any information that you can bring in. Now, as I scroll down, I can see the target that record was brought from, the title, author, ISBN, and then Koha also allows library systems to bring in additional fields. This is really going to speed up this process of eliminating the fields, the records that we may not feel as what we want to catalog, such as maybe an online resource, and I'm looking for specifically a book versus that online resource. I'm going to go ahead and I can click that mark option. I also can look at a card preview, or I could directly import that into the system. Looking at the mark preview, I'll get a little pop-up that will allow me to look at all the mark fields that I'll be bringing over, and then I have the ability to go and directly import that into the system. From here, I'm in what Koha calls the basic editor, and I can go ahead and click those mark fields and make any edits that I need to make this record my own in the system. As I said earlier, this is built on frameworks, so you can see what fields that Koha has indicated that I need to fill out by the librarian standards of the framework I'm using, and then potentially if there are any important fields. An important field won't stop a staff member from saving this, but it will let a reminder be popped up to let them know that they have some important fields not filled out. This is very keyboard driven, which allows me to pop over to any of those mark fields within that record with just clicking here. Once I hit save, I'm then brought to the item template, in essence, which is attached to the framework. This will tell me all the item fields that I could potentially fill out. If there are any required fields, that will show up in red. And then I'm able to fill out the necessary information about the specific copy within my library. Creating items also allows for item templates to be visible. Item templates would easily allow staff to have fields that are by default always chosen when they're cataloging. In this example, the adult fiction, this is going to fill out both my collection code and my shelving location, saving the workflow a few steps. I may go ahead and fill out the date, give this item a barcode, a call number. If this record had a call number in a specific field, such as the 082AB or the 090AB, it would fill in for me, but I always have the ability to make any changes and make that customized to my library. I also have these 3 dots over on the right-hand side next to my call number, which allows me to look at other call numbers in this same area. So you can see this is the record I'm cataloging, but I can see potentially maybe I need to add some more information to the call number. I can go ahead and add this item, add and duplicate, add a bunch of copies, which would allow me to create the same record over and over without having to click these fields again. Or if this was the first time I was creating an item template, I could go ahead and save that as a template. Once I've created the item and I've brought over this record, I am able to see the full effect of the MARC record, this cover image that is brought in from 3 different sources within Koha: Amazon, Open Library, or Google Books, which is being brought in from that ISBN. So if there is a cover image connected to one of those 3 sources, I will get a cover image. As I scroll down, I can see the holding that I just created. If my library has subscribed to Novelist Select, I will also have the Novelist Select information below my holding. Anything in the 500 field will show up in descriptions. If this was brought in through the acquisition module, I would have some acquisition details. And from the image tab, I can upload a separate image file if I wanted to. Now, when we catalog this record for the first time, we use what's known as the basic editor. The other option when cataloging is the advanced editor, which will bring the user a different look which will bring the user a look of the MARC record with only fields that are filled out. So I don't have any of the blank fields. It's the same MARC record, but it's taking away all that extra space. Staff members can use either editors with the correct permissions, and over here on the top of the area, I have some keyboard shortcuts, which would tell me how to add a copy and paste, add a delimiter, add some line breaks. The library system itself can always redefine those shortcuts. I also have some other settings within the advanced editor. As I scroll down, I can make the text small or all the way up to huge, and I can also change the font that I'm working in. The advanced editor has the capability of having macros attached to it. So if a library has a specific macro that they'd like to create or easily apply to an existing record, such as maybe I needed to suppress this, I could add that macro and run it against this system. Once I've done any edits, I could go ahead and save that to the catalog. Click that View button, and now I'm able to see any changes that I've made to the MARC record, such as it's suppressed in the OPAC, right here in the bib record. We're going to pop back over to the cataloging module just to walk through that stage records for import. If you did have a file of records from a vendor, you could easily grab those, add them to your stage MARC records for import processing. And then below, you're going to fill out some of the settings that are required to let Koha know specifically what it's looking at and what to do with it. This process has what's known as profiles. So if there was something in the below settings that you're always choosing for settings and record matching, you could apply a profile, meaning you're not going to have to pick and choose each of the settings below. If you didn't choose a profile, then you would go ahead and fill out the settings such as what record type it is, the character encoding, and the format. You also have the ability to apply any MARC modification templates that the library has created. These are actions that you would apply to these MARC records. You could add fields, remove fields, copy fields, delete fields as you import those. And then finally, you have the ability to set up those matching rules. So what field would you like to look at existing records within your system? If a match is found, what Koha should do with that specific match, and then if no match is found. And then finally, you could check for item record data within the system. If I go ahead and apply a profile, you'll see that I now have some matching rules set up, and it's set it and forget it. Once I've imported that MARC records, I can go ahead and view that batch. I have the profile that I applied and the settings. I will be able to see any MARC records that I've brought into the system temporarily at this point. I haven't quite put them in. And then lastly, I can go ahead and import this batch into the catalog, which is bringing in that MARC record, and I'm able to start that process. Now we're going to head back over to the cataloging. So we went through that stage records. Any records that have been staged will live in my manage stage records. I have the ability to export any of my data through the cataloging module at any point. The export option allows me to pick and choose a range of bibliographic numbers, a specific item type, a holding libraries selection of bibliographic records, a session date, a call number range, and that's truly going to grab all that information and create a MARC file for me. I have the ability to create inventory, create labels within the system. A label creator would allow the library to create a kind of a template where it's determined what labels are within that sheet. So here's my Avery, how many columns, how many rows, and the dimensions of that. And then I have what's known as a layout, what lives on that specific label, either a barcode, title, just a call number, and then I'm able to grab items in my collection and create sheets of labels for my items. A couple of other options that libraries have within the system is there are system preferences that are specifically dedicated to the cataloging module. So this will bring you directly to any system preferences that library systems can, in essence, customize to fit their library needs. So it's an easy access right to that administration area with the correct permissions. We're going to go out of the cataloging module, and we're going to head over to the serials module. Within the serials module, you're going to be able to search within the subscriptions you've created from this main screen or from this top green screen. I'm going to go ahead and hit that go and see all my serial subscriptions. Once you've created a subscription in the system, you're going to have them live on this grid, which gives me the ISSN, a title, a nice summary about this specific subscription. And once one is created, I could easily just start that receiving process. If I need to make any edits to this subscription or create a new subscription for this serial, I can do that from here. I'm going to just go ahead and hit that edit subscription. The subscription of a serial within Koha is built from a bibliographic record. So once you have a bibliographic record in the system, you're going to attach a subscription to it. You're going to give some details to Koha, such as whether you're going to create an item record, the issue number scenario, the call number, the library it's attached to, the location, collection, and item type. This is going to make the next receiving of a serial a lot easier because that information is going to be filled out for the staff member. After that process, then you're going to go ahead and, in essence, plan the serial. So assign a frequency, a subscription length, and a numbering pattern. Now, Koha has what's known as a Mana knowledge base, which if the subscription you're creating is found in the Mana knowledge base, then you can easily import that frequency and numbering pattern directly into your system, which means you don't have to do it for yourself. You can also share subscription patterns with the rest of the community through the Mana knowledge base as well. The volume, whatever your enumeration is for your serial, you're going to set that up, test that prediction pattern and make sure that Koha is predicting the next issue correctly. Once that's done, then Koha is going to have a nice planning tab that tells you exactly how this subscription is set up, what issues have arrived and what issue is expected, and then finally a summary of all the issues that we've received, missing, and any notes attached to it. From here, we could easily go ahead and receive that issue, that next issue. It's going to predict that numbering pattern. It's going to say when it was expected and published on, and then I'm going to hit that arrived. And then this subscription creates an item. So that library is put in for me, the shelving location, the chronology, even the call number. I would just need to add a barcode. It's going to come over as that non-circulating periodical as it was set up in the subscription. And then if there was any supplemental issues I needed to add to that. Once I've created that and received that issue, Koha will go ahead and mark that one as arrived and then mark the next month as what is expected, which is 495 number 1. Again, through that process, I could go ahead and receive, I could generate next, I could receive multiple. I'm going to pop into the subscription area that we were in before, and now we're going to look at just that bibliographic record, which I said is what it's attached to. So there's my bibliographic record, and under this area where we saw the holdings, we also have now a subscription tab. That subscription tab will give me the whole scenario of this subscription, the details of the issues that have arrived and when they've arrived. It also can bring me right back to that subscription information, and I can look at that in the OPAC as well for what my staff see. Over on the right-hand side, I can create more frequencies that Koha has not included with the default, but it does hit all the major ones, so once a month, once a week, once a day, once a year. I also have the ability to create more numbering patterns. Again, Koha does bring in some default ones, but I can always add more numbering patterns and make them specific to a serial itself, or just give some sort of name and description that would let staff know what exactly this is applying to. Back to the serials page, I have the ability to search over here on the right-hand side, again, searching by ISSN, title, library, any notes, when it expires on, and then over here, I have the ability to directly go ahead and receive any of these subscriptions that are in this module itself. If I hit this serial receive, again, we're going through that same process and receiving that serial within the system. Looks like I have one that's already claimed, and I'm going to go ahead and create that September one as arrived and hit save. We are not creating an item on this one, so this is not adding some item information. This is just a receiving of the issue itself. Finally, we're going to head over to the acquisition module. Within the acquisition module, has a couple of components that we're going to talk about. First, we have vendors within the system. A vendor will allow me to, in essence, create the vendor that I'm going to be using within the acquisition module, give some company details, name, address, website, account number, contact details. I can create multiple contacts per vendor. I can also indicate who I'm going to, if this is the individual I would contact about late orders or late issues within the system. And then finally, ordering information, how those prices are listed. If there's any tax or discount or delivery time, I can include that information there. That's one component within the acquisition module. The second component within the acquisition module are budgets and funds. When creating a budget, you're going to assign a start and end date, a description, and an amount within that budget. You can have as many budgets within the Koha system as you want, and you can indicate if this is an active budget or we're locking that budget. I also can allow, Koha has the ability to plan that budget out by months, by item types, or by libraries, and at any time I can go ahead and edit or duplicate this budget. This is all based on permissions within the library system. The next step, once I've created a budget, is I have funds and sub-funds, which would allow me to allocate how I'm going to spend that money in the budgets, giving a fund code, the name, and the amount. Now this has a little arrow that indicates that within my audio-visual fund, I also have a sub-fund for youth audio and visual, and I can see each one has a specific dollar amount allocated. I also can see from this grid the amount spent and the amount available. Each fund is editable at any point, so you can move money around, and at any point I could create additional sub-funds. I can create sub-funds on sub-funds. So we've talked about our vendors, we've talked about our budgets and funds, and this main page of the acquisition module allows me to have easy access to both the funds, what I've ordered, and what I've spent, and how much is available. Clicking any of these options that are clickable would allow me to have a nice view of what I've spent, bringing me right to that title within the system. And then from there, I can see those acquisition details on the bibliographic record itself, the vendor it was ordered from, the invoice it's attached to, that basket, and the order number, and specifically the status of this order. This gives me a nice, good look at what is spent and what is also outstanding within the system. The next step is the actual ordering of the material within Koha. Your first step would be to tell Koha where you're ordering your material from. And then from there, if I'm using Amazon, I can create a new basket. This basket can be any name situation that you want to do. Is it a PO or some text or the date? It really is up to the library. The billing information, if there's any notes specific about why I'm ordering these material, both an internal note or a vendor note. Maybe I talked to a salesperson and I was guaranteed overnight shipping. And then when and if to create the items during this process. After I've created the basket, then I can add material to that basket. Koha has lots of ways to allow staff to include orders, such as if you're ordering a second copy, so something from within your system, from a purchase suggestion, from a subscription, if you are creating just an empty record, if you needed to order a second copy of something you've already ordered, from the Z39.50 source, from a file that you've received from a vendor, from a file that's already been staged, and then finally titles with the highest hold ratios within the system. We went ahead and had staged a file earlier, so we can go ahead and grab that file that we staged and go ahead and add that to our basket. At this point, We can add information such as quality, price, replacement price, and discount. This information can also be included in your 9XX fields from your vendor. So that is something, if it's added to the mark field, this information can be filled out for you through that mark record. You also could add item information to this, as well as default accounting details. So if you had, a file of 15 of these, you could say they all are applied in this way. Once I've added that to my basket, I can see it in my basket. I can see the price going all the way to the right, what fund it is, whether I need to change this or cancel this. I can continue to add to the basket, so I have all those options again. I could edit, delete this basket, close this basket, export this, or email this order. If I were to close this basket, this would allow any material to be received. So that item, once it's come in, can be received within the system. You can see I'm back to my Amazon vendor. I can go ahead easily add a new basket. Or my next choice is to receive shipments. Just looking at the basket specifically to Amazon, I can see the name of the basket, how many items, who created it, the date, and whether it is closed, or I can add more things to that basket. If I hit that receive shipment, I'm now able to create a vendor invoice for this, apply a shipping cost and specifically to a fund. And then I can go ahead and receive the material within the box that I received from that specific vendor. At that point, I have a little bit of the catalog details. I'll be able to see the accounting details, such as the date, if I need to change the fund or the fund that was selected, the amount that has been received, if there's any tax or any changes in the price, actual costs, I can go ahead and do that, and then I can go ahead and hit save. If that is the last thing I need to receive from this vendor, I can come down to the bottom and say, yep, that's all that was in the box, and I can go ahead and finish that receiving process, close the invoice if I wanted to, and also make any adjustments to an invoice at this moment. Adjustments can be both in the positive and the negative, and then apply that to a specific fund. I'm going to go ahead and close that invoice. Also, from the acquisition module, I can go ahead and search for any specific orders that are outstanding. I also have the ability to search by invoices, billing date, ISBN title, and by a specific library. This will allow me to see all invoices that are open and closed and make any edits that are necessary. If I click into one of these invoice numbers, I can see that vendor information, the invoice number. I can go ahead and see the titles that have been added to that invoice. And I can also attach any invoices to a specific invoice within Koha. So if I had a file that I wanted to include, I can certainly do that as well. Over on the left-hand side, a lot of what we went into today for acquisitions, you can indicate your late orders within the system, sending notices directly to that contact within your vendor. You can look at any purchase suggestions because the purchase suggestion module and acquisitions are linked. So any accepted ones you can easily add to a basket. If you're using any Edifact ordering, Koha does connect with at least a dozen different vendors, and we'd be happy to work with you setting those up. Then you also have some reports that are directly linked to the acquisition module, as well as some other administration such as currencies, setting up those EDI accounts, and then adding any additional invoice fields and basket fields. This wraps up the technical services section of Koha. Have a great day.